Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into the massive controversy surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files. Because, as it turns out, this story is just as much about what's being hidden as what's being revealed.
Okay, so let's get right into it. A brand new law was passed with one goal: total transparency. Blow the lid off the Epstein investigation. So why, then, did we end up with a document dump that just seemed to create way more questions than it answered?
So after months, and I mean months, of public pressure, the day finally came. The Department of Justice had a legal deadline to release thousands of pages from its investigation. Everybody was waiting.
But the second those files hit the internet, it was pretty obvious something was off. You open them up, and what do you see? Page after page just covered in a sea of black ink. Huge sections completely gone.
And look, we're not just talking about a few sensitive names being blacked out here and there. No. This was page after page after page, with giant chunks of text just completely wiped out. It made it impossible to figure out what was even being said. This pattern of just extreme redaction, well, it became the main story.
So, how in the world did we get here? How did a promise of total transparency turn into, well, this? To really get why everyone was so mad, you have to go back and look at the actual law that was supposed to stop this from ever happening.
It was called the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and it was designed to be totally airtight. I mean, this was one of those rare things that got support from both sides in Washington. The whole point was to force the DOJ to release everything. And it was super clear. There were only five very specific reasons they could legally black something out. The goal? No more secrets.
So, with a law that strong in place, what did we actually get when the deadline hit? Well, let's just say the reality was a little different from the promise.
Check this out. According to the first analyses that came out, this big document dump, it was only about 10% of the total FBI files on the entire case. Just 10%. That's it.
But oh, it gets so much worse. Of that tiny little 10% slice that they released, half of it was information that was already public. Stuff we already knew. So if you do the math, the big reveal of new information amounted to a measly 5% of the entire FBI investigation.
And this is the exact moment this story stops being about just releasing documents and turns into a full-blown political fight between Congress and the Department of Justice.
Okay, and here you have it. This is really the smoking gun. The DOJ, in a letter to Congress, straight up admitted that they redacted information that went way beyond what is stated in the law. I mean, they didn't just bend the rules, they openly admitted they broke them.
So, as you can probably imagine, the people in Congress who actually wrote and passed this transparency bill, they were not happy. Their reaction was fast and it was furious.
Representative Thomas Massie, who is a key Republican author of the bill, did not hold back. He immediately came out and said the release grossly fails to comply with both the spirit and the letter of the law. I mean, it doesn't get much more direct than that.
And that feeling was pretty much everywhere across the board. You had people like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene just saying, release all the files. It's literally the law. The message coming from Congress was really simple. Just follow the law you were given.
Okay, so let's talk about one of those 5 legal exemptions for a second. One of the legitimate reasons to black stuff out is to protect an ongoing investigation. That's standard practice, and it's written right into the new law. And as it happens, there actually was an ongoing investigation related to Epstein into Bill Clinton.
So you'd think, okay, if there's a live investigation into Bill Clinton, they'd be extra careful and redact anything about him, right? Nope. Instead, they released a bunch of photos of Clinton, the very subject of their investigation. It's this kind of thing that led critics to just throw their hands up and call the whole release a farce. It seemed to totally contradict their own reasoning.
But, when you step back from all the political drama in D.C., you have to remember the real human cost here. Let's talk about the impact on the people who have been waiting the longest for answers, the survivors. Because hidden in all that black ink, one absolutely horrifying new detail did emerge. The number 1,200. That's the new estimated number of Epstein's victims. It's a number that is just so much higher than anyone had publicly known.
And for these survivors, this whole thing was never about just seeing a list of famous names. No, they're looking for something much deeper. They want to understand the system that let this happen. They want to know why people got immunity deals, why some people were never charged, and why, after all these years, they are still facing this massive wall of secrecy.
So, in the end, we're left with this really disturbing question. When a law is written specifically to create transparency, what does it mean when the documents that are finally released just become another act of secrecy? That's the question victims and the public are still asking, as the search for the real truth continues.